how well this is going to show up, but we're going to give this a try. Cutting through steel that is, let's say, a little over an eighth of an inch thick. He's a bit picky about focus. I was using the cutting wheel, which as you can see is already a little bit worn on the side, but it's still got plenty of life in it. And that's on my silly little Drill Master $10 Harbor Freight grinder. Nails first. By the way, this piece of steel, I don't know if you can see it or not, is one that I found on my walk home from Jerome. Fortunately, I didn't find it earlier in my walk home. I found it just like a mile and a half from home, but it was still tedious to carry that last mile and a half. Okay, we're gonna cut some nails. Okay, let's start this out by cutting some nails using a grinder. You can tell a cutting wheel because it's very, very thin. And it will say cutting wheel on the front of it when it's new. There's a new one. It's a cut-off wheel, 4.5 inch. You probably have some that look identical to this. So here we go. If you can see the grinder, there's an arrow right here pointing that way. So the wheel turns this way. That means it's going to kick sparks back at the camera. Which may or may not be kind of spectacular. Okay, that's how long it took to go through. I think that's a 16 penny nail, I'm not sure. It's not a tiny nail by any stretch of the imagination. It's a fairly substantial nail. And then I wanted to show you that you actually can get in and do some fairly close work with a grinder. You just have to get a little bit of familiarity with them, and trust me, I don't have a lot. That's very smooth. I did touch the wood a little bit there, but that's all. For size comparison on the nail. That fast. We'll smooth that one off. Okay, it's hot, it's not smooth. Okay, and these are little finishing nails, just to show you that it can go through those as well. These are something that a lot of people might try to cut with a, I mean, any of these nails can be cut with a multi-tool, but it's going to be a lot more work. It's going to take a lot longer. We'll just go through this one real quickly here. For purposes of comparison, I'm going to cut through the same size nail that we just went through with a Dremel. As soon as I untangle myself from the tripod legs and swap to the cutting wheel. This is my Dremel. It's an actual Dremel brand, in case you're not good at reading upside down. There we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we did go through it fine with the Dremel, but definitely not as quickly as we did with the grinder, and now I see we're completely out of focus here. Okay, and now for a screw, which I'm certainly not going to attempt with the Dremel. It'll do it, but it's just the amount of time it takes is not great, and you might think the Dremel would be far more precise. Maybe you can be, but I don't think overall that Dremels tend to be. It just kind of depends on whether you're good with the tool you're using or not. So we're going to use the grinder. If you're wondering why I would cut nails and then turn around and cut a screw, screws tend to be harder than nails, so it takes a little more to cut through them. Okay, I also wanted to cut through a link of chain for you. And because it's a link of chain, in order to separate it, you have to have more than one cut. You have to have a space to pull the other link through. So we'll cut it again. And unfortunately I'm losing the light, so I'm going to try to get you to where you can see that a little better. But I can't guarantee anything. Just for grins, I thought I'd show you a router. This is my little trim router. It's really not much more than a motor with a little chuck attached to it to spin a bit, and the bit goes in the chuck. Obviously it's got a little platform on the bottom. This one happens to be Makita. I have 3 routers. This is my favorite, and since it's got that bit in it, I'm going to go ahead and use that bit. This thing that it has on the side is just a guide. I'll show you how that works in a second, and you can take that off. Okay. Routers have a tendency to be kind of loud. They create a lot of sawdust, but they're not terribly difficult to use. And this one, you'll hear it start up kind of slowly and then come up to full RPM. It's that do, because a lot of them you turn them on and it goes instantly do, and you're holding like, in this case 1.25 horsepower, in a lot of cases 1.5 or even 2 horsepower in your hand, and it twists it while you're in contact with the work and screws up what you're doing. Hopefully we won't have that problem. And they do have a tendency to leave a lot of sawdust in the area you've cut. So I'm going to show you what we're doing here. So I can get the camera out of here. right there. Got that little slot in that board. This is a different kind of router bit. It has a little bearing on the end here. We'll go ahead and pop that into the router and try to show you how that works. As tends to be the case, nothing ever goes smoothly, so for some reason this little fastener on here has locked itself up to where I can't get it off of my fingers, so I'm going to use my Knipex pliers to convince it that it needs to loosen. Okay, and now this little guide comes off of the router, and then I can just tighten that back down to keep it where I need it. And then I'm going to have to pop the base off the router. Grab the wrench. There's a red button right here. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, almost out of battery. So we're gonna pop this bit out. We're gonna slide this bit in. Tighten that down. Doesn't have to be real tight. It needs to be tight enough that it doesn't slide off. Then we have to put this on the right direction or it doesn't work. And we're going to have the bit sticking out the amount we want the bit sticking out. And the point now is to show you that nothing ever works the way it's supposed to. To show you that the edges of this board are nothing special, and that's what we're going to try to change. A little luck. Of course, now even the camera doesn't want to lock into the tripod properly for some reason. We're just going to see if we can make this work right. Okay, the last bit I want to show you, I can't show you because it's too dark. Okay, I'm just gonna do this as best I can. This is a keyhole bit, and it's a little tricky. This is the keyhole bit, and you can kind of look at it and see how it works. You plunge it down into the material that carves a bit or a hole the size of the end of the bit. But the neck of it also has cutters on it, and it only cuts a slot the diameter of the neck. So it cuts a nice little keyhole, and of course the end of it continues cutting down inside the wood so that the head of the screw has a place to be, and it's kind of an inverted T-cut in the wood. Anyway, we'll try it. Now I should be using a guide for this, but I don't have time because I'm running out of battery and I'm running out of light. I'm running out of desire to live. Not really. But this is our sloppy as hell keyhole. Okay, and now this probably won't work because I haven't had a chance to do any of this the way I want to, and it's too dark to see if it works anyway, but if you can see this, you'll see that I have my little DeWalt collar on there with a screw loaded into it, and I'm going to just put that right in the wood, and I'm going to take my little sloppy as hell keyhole, and you probably can't see any of this anyway, but we'll slip it over that screw and drop it down, and if you could see any of that, you'd see that we now have this piece of wood hanging on that piece of wood. It won't come off until we lift it up and slide it off because it has a keyhole slot in the back that looks like it was done by a 3-year-old. There you go. You can actually see that there a little bit. And if I move this out, maybe you can see that a little. But once again, just pop this over the screw, slide it down, and it's going to stay there even though it's not centered and it's not balanced and it's not good, but gives you a basic idea.